do the story when it's ready to go. You should not be dictated by the political cycle.
She insists there was nothing wrong with her reporting.
I went to a lot of effort to get the cleanest copy of the laptop data, the same data that was provided to the FBI, because I didn't want to have any professional journalistic risk for CBS News. I wanted this thing to be totally locked down.
She says there were several stories from the laptop that were not allowed to see the light of day, including some that implicated President Joe Biden.
We found that there were more than half a dozen emails that were likely used by Joe Biden. I thought that was a story. But the answer that came back was, well, we need to know what the content is of the emails. But that was going to be a years-long process.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
Is God calling you to ministry? It's time to multiply your capacity for ministry with an affordable degree. The Bachelor of Arts in Christian Ministry at Wesley Biblical Seminary is the degree for you. When God called you to ministry, He called you to preparation. This degree is the education that you need to put all the pieces together for an amazing life of ministry. You will graduate with a confidence for ministry that is backed up by your competence in the scriptures, theology, and ministry. Come learn with a trusted seminary that will help you become a faithful leader. Learn more at wbs.edu.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim Wildmon with Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Tim. Welcome back.
Thank you. Chris Woodward.
Good morning.
It's good to be back. Thanks for everybody for listening to AFR. Hey, just a note, we will obviously not be here tomorrow live. We've got a couple specials lined up. Brent, you want to tell us what, Brent Creeley, our producer, what's on tap for tomorrow?
Tomorrow from 10 to 11 Central, we'll have an In Grace radio special, Thanksgiving special. And then from 11 to 11:30 is Dr. Ray Pritchard radio special.
Okay, so we won't be here tomorrow like you. We'll be celebrating Thanksgiving Day with our families. We will be back here live Friday for Trivia Friday. So Ed and JJ and yours truly will be here Friday for Learning University. All right. But, yeah, good to be back. My wife and I, Allison, we went down to the beach for a few days Saturday.
Beautiful Destin.
Yeah, Destin, Florida, just stunningly. The beaches were beautiful, and the weather was 75. And
perfect.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Perfect.
I can leave now and make it there by
Yeah, I know, right? A lot of folks saw a lot of tags from the Midwest.
Yep.
And a lot of folks come down for Thanksgiving, to escape the cool weather, maybe not cold weather, but cool weather. And
I've been to Destin like end of January, February.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin and Minnesota tags.
Snowbirds.
Yeah. For them,
Oh, yeah, 60-degree days are like balmy. Huh? When you're used to the high being 22.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everything's relative.
Talking about the Midwest, they're channeling my inner brother Ray Pritchard. The high tomorrow for him is going to be somewhere around 37. I could understand why
in Kansas City. Yeah,
I could understand why some people would be in the Gulf.
Yep. Well, anyway, hey, by the way, went to Honey Baked Ham.
Yes.
Here in town where we live in Tupelo.
Yeah.
So I went there an hour and a half ago. I was going to beat the crowd because they open at 9. Because I was it's a honeydew list.
Yeah.
Honey Baked Ham is my honeydew list. See what I did there?
Make sure you get one.
Yeah. So I went there at 9, 8:45. I thought, I'll beat everybody.
Nope.
I'll be the first one here and outsmart everybody. No. There's a line of 15 people already there. So I started calculating. All right. I'm going to say 5 minutes a person. Okay. Because that's probably what it's going to take. Am I right?
Yep.
Because you got to tell the cashier what you ordered, then they got to go get it, then they got to ring you up, and then you say, "Oh yeah," some guy says, "Oh yeah, throw me some potato salad." You know what I'm saying? So I figured 5, 10, 15 times 5. What is that? That's like
That's
a lot.
75.
yeah. I don't
And
have
you-
an hour. I don't have an hour to sit here and wait, so I might have to go back.
And you were near one of our many train crossings in
Yes.
the micropolitan that is Tupelo.
Oh yeah,
I was at a business next to Honeyham yesterday,
yeah,
and I told my wife this. It was like Grand Central Station.
yeah.
You know, it was just the parking lot was full. People were
Yeah.
flowing in.
Yeah. Well, we like, sometimes do your own turkey and so forth, but honey baked ham, I know we're giving them free advertising, but they're hard to beat.
Lots of people love them.
Yeah, honey baked ham and their turkey too is outstanding.
Yeah.
All right, so everybody's getting ready to celebrate Thanksgiving. We're going to talk to Stephen McDowell, president of the Providence Foundation, as we do most years, and we'll talk to Stephen about the history of Thanksgiving Day celebration here in the U.S. of A. So that's coming up in just a little bit. Didn't you tell me you had Thanksgiving Day in Canada already?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a month ago or so?
Yes, in early October, Monday in October.
Gotcha.
So
But
you're working tomorrow then, right?
Oh, no, because
Yeah.
I have an American wife.
Right.
So we get to
Right.
celebrate American
Right.
Thanksgiving as well.
All right. Well, Chris, what's the first thing happening in the news right now?
I want to direct everybody's attention to some breaking news that Fred Jackson just posted on AFN.net. It's from the great state of Ohio, where Republican Governor Mike DeWine has signed a bill that says students from kindergarten through college at the state's public and private schools must use bathrooms designated by their biological sex. This is the Protect All Students Act, and it's one of those issues where men and women claimed it was a privacy issue. They didn't want to have to use the same restroom as somebody from the opposite sex claiming they were something other than they were born with. So Ohio is the new battleground state when it comes to bathrooms. And, of course, this comes after news on the federal level where Representative Nancy Mace has been wanting members of Congress to use certain bathrooms.
Can't believe we're even having to talk about this.
I know.
I know.
I never thought I would talk about this when I started
Yeah.
here.
Well, the insanity of what's been going on
Right.
out there. And that's what it's insane.
I think there's a reaction, though.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Oh, yeah.
a reaction. There's
Yes.
the other way.
Well, and it's across the political spectrum, too, because a lot of it has to do, of course, bathroom use. What young lady wants some guy coming in?
Right, right.
You know, but also the sports issue has really elevated the debate.
Yeah.
Guys claiming to be girls on girls' sports teams.
Yeah.
And
That's a loser for the Democrats.
it is.
And that showed up in the election results.
I believe it did.
Yeah, I believe it did too.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Let's just say it affected 1% of the voters. That was enough to make a big difference across the country. 1 or 2% of the voters. Although I think it had more. The backlash to the woke stuff, including the push for boys and girls sports.
Yeah.
Boys who call themselves girls, who are boys playing girls athletics and going to their changing rooms and restrooms and being on the bus, all that stuff. People are saying, no, that's a bridge too far. Even liberals are saying that's a bridge too far. We're not accepting that. So this is good news out of Ohio. Of course, North Carolina did that a few years ago. Remember? And the whole, all the left and Hollywood came down on them.
Target.
Yeah.
Target did it too, yeah. But anyway, well, good for Ohio. What they've said is, so they passed it. Mike DeWine, the governor, signed it?
Yes.
Signed it.
Okay, it's a done deal then.
And we
Yes.
do already have some reaction. Aaron Baer, president of the Center for Christian Virtue, for example, told us common sense is on a winning streak in America today. No student should be forced to go into the bathroom or locker room with a student of the opposite sex.
Right.
And Ohio's kids are better protected now because of Governor DeWine's decision to sign this bill.
Well, good for the legislature
Yes.
there in the Buckeye State, and good for Mike DeWine, the governor, for signing that. By the way, has there been any announcement about who he will appoint to take J.D. Vance's place in the Senate?
I have not seen anything,
No.
but I'm going to Google it for
No.
you.
A lot of people were speculating about Vivek Ramaswamy, but he's going to be busy.
Yeah. Yeah,
He and Elon Musk are teaming up. I can hardly wait. When they go to work on downsizing the government.
Yeah.
There is going to be, as we say in the hockey world, a Donnybrook
Mm-hmm.
going on out there. because they're already talking about what they want to do. Elon Musk is already talking about, hey, we've got buildings in Washington, D.C. that are 80% empty because people are allegedly working from home.
Yeah.
And this has got to stop. It's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And so you wait until which is what when he purchased and what is now X, he made people, we're going to make people come to work.
Yeah.
And wait till that happens.
So he and Vivek Ramaswamy are working on that, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
On that government waste committee. Go ahead.
Yeah, they wrote an op-ed last week in Wall Street Journal. They said they're going to start with executive branch regulations. Therefore, they didn't have to go through Congress. A lot of people don't realize this, but Congress has really delegated a lot of decision-making and authority, even financial decisions, to the executive branch.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So Ramaswamy and Musk are of the opinion that if we can start there, we don't have to worry about Congress, and we can really go to the president with, here's what you need to get rid of day one in the first 100 days, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very busy between Inauguration Day and around Easter for these two fellows.
Okay, you got 2 Senate seats that are going to have to be replaced that are Republican. J.D. Vance is the VP, so he's given up his Ohio Senate seat. So the governor there, a Republican, DeWine, will have to replace him. And then Marco Rubio, who is the who will be the new Secretary of State. He's the senator from Florida, so Governor DeSantis from Florida will have to replace him.
Yes.
So that'll have to take place soon because the new session will start in January.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. Because I was thinking, well, maybe DeSantis, the governor from Florida, maybe he will be maybe he wants that Senate seat, but he's a sitting governor, so and he's got 2 years left.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not. I don't know. I don't have any inside information.
He'll pick a good conservative.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But
I wonder if he'll pick a conservative to stay there for 2 years to replace Rubio, and then DeSantis himself will run for Senate in Florida. Perhaps that could happen.
That's a possibility, yeah.
Perhaps that could happen.
Yep.
But anyway, okay, the other big news internationally is that Hezbollah, the terrorist organization in Lebanon, north of Israel, and the Israeli government have agreed to a ceasefire. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, and you can also read this on our website, afn.net. I've already posted this link on our Facebook page, so listeners need to check that out. Today's Issues on Facebook. Israel and Lebanon-based Hezbollah terrorists began a ceasefire in a major step toward ending nearly 14 months of fighting, as a region on edge wondered whether it will hold. The ironic situation here is that in the story Fred posted on afn.net, it says, some celebratory gunshots could be heard celebrating the ceasefire. I just found that kind of funny. But apparently they're in Beirut's southern suburbs. They're excited about this. President Biden has already weighed in on this. He did say things like, let's be clear, Israel did not launch this war. The Lebanese people did not seek that war either, nor did the U.S. So the Biden administration is celebrating this and thanking France, because apparently the president of France, Mr. Macron, was an assistant on this peace accord.
And we must add quickly, Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel has said, if Hezbollah breaks this ceasefire, Israel will go back in full force.
Yeah.
He's not going to put up with this anymore.
Well, okay, my opinion is the reason we have Hezbollah. You ever play, remember when we were kids and you played the game Uncle with your big brother or your cousin, and they were bigger than you, and they twisted your arm behind your back until you cried?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Uncle?
Uncle, yes.
Well, Hezbollah is crying uncle because Israel has come down on them unmercifully.
Yeah.
Because Hezbollah, was a constant threat and bombing, sending missiles into northern Israel, and people who are Israeli citizens were displaced for months and months, and Israel just had it.
Yep.
And they were just saying, all right, we're going to go find these people wherever they are, and if they're living in Lebanon in civilian populations, we'll have to go find them there too, and if, we're going to do whatever it takes. And you remember, what was it, about 6 weeks ago when Israelis figured out a way to set off the cell phones?
Pagers.
The pagers?
Yes.
Of Hezbollah?
Yes, they Hezbollah purchased the pagers they didn't know it, from an Israeli company,
Yeah.
Israeli-owned
Right.
company.
Right. And they put some kind of explosives inside the pagers.
Yes.
Yep.
And then the next day they made the cell phones go off, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
It affected them.
I mean,
And that
this
was
is like
after.
Tom Cruise Mission Impossible stuff here.
Talk about an intimidation factor.
That was
Right.
after a terrorist leader or high-ranking official in some terrorist group died in a bombing because apparently Israel had planted a bomb inside the wall like months earlier.
Yeah.
And just happened to know that that guy was in that room at that time.
Well, what Israel doesn't need to let happen, and they won't, is they don't need to let a ceasefire only give Hezbollah time to reorganize
Yes.
and rearm,
Mhm.
and then they're back at it again.
Yes.
So I'm sure Israel will be monitoring that.
Mm-hmm.
And if did you just say the French president was involved?
Yes,
Macron?
according to Biden.
Okay. So, listen, there's three parties. Well, there's in Lebanon. Lebanon, for those who don't know, I don't mean to sound like I'm explaining this to a child, but Lebanon is the country immediately to the north of Israel, also on the Mediterranean coast.
Mhm.
All right, so it's an Arab country. That's where Arabs live. But it used to be known as basically a Christian country.
Yep.
Remember, we've talked to Bridget Gabrielle
Yes.
many times here on this program. Hadn't had her on in a while.
Mm.
But it was also known. Beirut was known as the Paris of the Mediterranean. I mean, it was known for its. It was a vacation spot for
Beautiful.
a lot of Europeans,
Mm-hmm.
for example, and then Hezbollah came in there and basically ran their operation inside Lebanon, and I don't think Lebanon was strong enough, and the Lebanese army or police strong enough to get rid of them.
Yep.
Right?
They actually became a political party,
Yeah.
Hezbollah.
Yeah. So they were using, Hezbollah was firing on Israel from a sovereign nation, an independent nation, Lebanon, but they were not the Lebanese
No.
government.
No.
So they were basically using the land of Lebanon to declare war on Israel. Well, Israel then had no choice but to fire into and go into sometimes Lebanon.
Yeah.
So-
Hezbollah, the day after Hamas, that October 7th, 2023 attack by Hamas, the Hamas massacre occurred. The day after, Hezbollah started firing missiles from the north.
Yeah.
If Hezbollah had stepped back, Israel wasn't going to. Israel doesn't fire first.
Right.
It defends itself.
Right. I'll tell you what. So anyway, this is great news because I think, at least for now, it's great news because the shooting, the fighting, the war on the northern border of Israel will stop. Right.
Yes.
And I think Israel's already they've already brought Hamas down too in Gaza. You just haven't heard much from them at all.
No.
Especially since their leader was killed 3 weeks ago. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And Israel has caught up with all these Hamas leaders and taken them out. And there's just there's nothing. Anyway, I think this is going to bring peace to Israel.
Yep.
And it's going to be long lasting. That's my opinion.
Well,
I don't think you're going to hear any more out of Iran.
No.
Especially since President Trump is going to be in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Marco Rubio and Mike Huckabee is going to be the ambassador to Israel. So I think the worst for Israel is over.
I believe so too.
I would agree with you based on something I observed yesterday on X. Things have been quiet in Israel when Fox's Trey Yingst, who is on television every time a rocket is fired. Fox's Trey Yingst yesterday was posting pictures of his vacation in Japan.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. And I thought, things really have calmed down. It's not just me.
Yeah. Well, it's been a hard 2 years. Year and a half?
Mm-hmm.
When was it? October? Was it
October
October?
of 23. October 7, 23.
Yeah, well, it's been a long year
Yes.
for Israel, but I think the worst is over. The Israeli military has responded with overwhelming force, and they had to, despite the fact that they were nitpicked by Biden and Harris and a lot of international leaders. The UN, condemns anything Israel does.
Yes.
They don't condemn other parts of the world where human rights violations go on, real human rights violations go on all the time.
Yes.
Nothing about that, just about Israel. So, and now that Israel has their longtime and best friend and best ally, the United States, back.
Yes.
With the election of President Trump, then I think it's a new day there. That's what I think.
Well, and Iran knows. Iran supplies the weapons to Hezbollah and Hamas. Iran knows Trump is coming back because of what Trump did in his first term of office.
Right.
So,
and Trump is not going to. Excuse me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Trump's not going to hand tie.
No.
Israel.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Biden tried to do.
Yes, absolutely. And Iran knows that Trump means business. If he threatens Iran, more sanctions, going to shut your economy down.
Right.
So they know that there's a new sheriff coming to town,
Yeah.
as that phrase has been used.
Yeah.
And I think it's great news for Israel.
You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues is the name of the show. Thank you for listening, Tim, Fred, and Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
So we have a new sheriff coming to town, and the deputy sheriff that's currently in office, Vice President Kamala Harris, she made a video last night and posted it on social media. And Vice President Harris is being criticized today because she appears drunk in the video that she did and posted on social media. Yes.
Drunk?
Yes. She has been ridiculed.
Like in 4 beers drunk?
Probably more than that.
Oh, okay. Or hard liquor.
Yeah, I'm not judging her, but she's being criticized for appearing drunk. The audio will not do it 100% justice, but listen to her in clip 1.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
Now, to go with this, the Daily Mail, this is their headline. Kamala Harris supporters stunned by new video as internet dubs her drunk aunt at Thanksgiving.
Now, it's sad when you don't know if somebody's video is done poorly because they've been drinking or because they're just that bad naturally. Huh?
She looks bad, too.
Yeah. Why did she even do this video?
No one knows.
What we just heard.
Well, if she had been drinking does lead to poor decisions.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Anyway, I just... Is the world clamoring for a video from Kamala Harris to her supporters? I mean, didn't she do a concession speech already about 2 weeks ago?
She did, and then she went to Hawaii. She spent the last couple of weeks in Hawaii.
Maybe she got...
And she just came home to the White House, and she puts this video out.
Yeah.
I haven't read anywhere, Chris, where her staff encouraged her to do this. In fact, I think the reports are the other way.
Mm-hmm.
It almost like she decided
Did
to
she
get
set up the camera herself?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Or a Dougie.
My
well, if what Fred said is accurate, that her staff is upset that she did this. There were forever reports that she didn't listen to her staff. She ignored briefings, all kinds of things. So even if her staff said don't do this, Kamala, she might have said, "Oh, it's okay."
Yeah.
So she. I would have just, if I went to Hawaii, I wouldn't come back and do a video. I'd just come back and give everybody T-shirts. My staff here, make everybody happy.
But a serious side to this, she is still the Vice President of the United States.
Yeah.
And and Biden the other day, in pardoning the turkeys at that ceremony, people were mentioning, he looked lost at some point when he was going back into the Oval Office. He looked like he didn't know where he was going.
He looked like he'd had a meeting with Turkey Hill before he went out there to part the turkeys.
We've got 53 days, is it now, before Inauguration Day? And we need to pray that the country gets through this next 53 days without any major crisis.
Yeah. You're right, because, really, since Biden did the debate, and the whole world then knew that he didn't know what was going on.
No.
And yet the Democrat Party said, hey, we're going to roll with that for the next 7 months.
Uh-huh.
Leader of the free world doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Huh? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
He's not. They kicked him out of. Basically, the Democrats went in and said, "You're not running. You're not going to be our candidate." So they quote kicked him to the curb.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're gonna kick somebody to the curb, then you need to remove them right then and there, because what you've said is you're not capable.
Yes.
Of being president, and yet the Democrats said, but we're going to let you be president for 7 more months.
Yeah.
We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Paul has some words for us in 2 Corinthians. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that by his poverty you might become rich. I'm a rich man. Some people I know will deny that. They look at my salary, my bank account, what possessions I have. They by no means consider me a rich man. They wouldn't even go so far as say that I was in the middle bracket, much less in the upper bracket. But like I said, I'm a rich man. I'm a rich man. I'm rich because of my heritage. I came from a home where parents loved me, provided for my needs to the best of their ability, sacrificed things they very much needed so that I could have advantages they never had. I'm a rich man. I have a wife who loves me. She puts up with all my faults, stands beside me, pulls for me when the going is rough. No, she's no Hollywood star. But most of the stars in Hollywood cannot hold a light to her when it comes to real beauty. Yes, I'm a rich man. I have 4 wonderful children. I have 5 grandchildren. Children and grandchildren who give hope and promise of a better tomorrow. I love them, want the best for them, and try to bring them up in a Christian environment like my parents did before me. I'm a rich man. I have a job, a very meaningful job. Not much money in it, nor prestige, but it gives me a chance to help my fellow man, to lift the sights of others to a higher level, give my life to a cause that will leave the world a better place in which to live. I'll probably never reach the top of my profession, but I can face life knowing I did my best in the job which I felt my Creator wanted me to do. I have a job which I consider important because He considers it important. And again, I'm a rich man. I want to say it one more time. I'm a rich man. I live in a free country. Millions and millions of people cannot know the richness of that. They live under the shadow of a dictator. Millions more here in the country where I live have never realized that freedom is an obligation, not a license. Thus they are poor. Poor because they have not learned that freedom is not a license to drag men down into the depths of filth, but that freedom is an obligation to lift myself and my fellow man to greater and greater heights, pressing on toward that high mark to which our Maker calls us. Again, I'll say it, I'm a rich man. I have friends who are friends. They stay with me through the good times and the bad. They encourage me. They cause me to try harder. They keep me from giving up. When the clouds of darkness are around me, these friends of mine are beside me. They're true friends. The doors to their homes are open to me as mine is to them. I'm a rich man. I've found what many still are searching for. I've found forgiveness and understanding and help. I found them in a crucified Galilean. He takes my weaknesses and makes me strong. He takes my fears and makes me brave. He takes my doubts and makes me believe. He assures me of what every person wants to know, that there will be life after death for me. Like I said, I'm a rich man. Oh, by the way, can I borrow a dime.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Colossians 1, verse 13.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Before we go to Stephen McDowell is going to be with us in just a moment. We're going to talk about Thanksgiving, the history of Thanksgiving. But I do want to get back to this story. Last night I was reading where Trump has appointed
Dr. Jay Bhattacharya.
I was going to let you say that.
Otherwise known as Dr. J, but not that Dr. J.
Dr. J? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
From
back in the day.
Yeah, like Duncan.
Dr. Jay Bhattacharya.
The Duncan Dr. J.
Yeah, think of Dr. Fauci, the direct opposite of Dr. Fauci.
Yes.
That's who Trump just appointed.
That's who Trump just appointed.
To the National Institutes of Health?
Yes.
Or National
Institutes of Health, or NIH.
Is that the position that Dr. Fauci held?
Yes. So basically, we went from fear-mongering Fauci to COVID is okay, we can get through this, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya.
But this guy is he was at Stanford?
Yes, I've interviewed him for a number of years. He's been on Washington Watch with
he is well qualified.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
He was just a critic of Fauci's and the way the government responded with all the lockdowns and shutdowns and mask up and all that, and everybody get a shot and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya became a household name back in 2020 when he and other COVID policy critics, formed something called the Great Barrington Declaration, which Fauci-ists tried to cancel and ridicule because it was going against what Fauci and others wanted us to believe.
Okay, I'm not saying that Trump did this. I'm not saying this fella isn't qualified, Dr.
Jay Bhattacharya.
Yes, him. And we've had him on AFR a number of times. But I would say this, to Trump trolls like nobody else.
He's a master. He's got his PhD in that.
I mean, this is like in your face to Dr. Fauci and the COVID lockdown folks.
Oh, yeah.
And forced vaccination shots and all that crowd right there.
Mm-hmm.
This guy really is Hitler to them.
Yes.
That the guy that Trump just appointed to be the new director of the NIH. So anyway, we'll see. Does he have to be confirmed?
I don't believe so. I'll double check that.
I don't think it's a cabinet level.
But
is it?
I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to have an office just down the hall.
Yeah, they will work
He also
together.
hates forced vaccination.
I do have a.
Can you imagine if you work in that office, you've worked with Fauci for 2 or 3 years, now these guys are coming into town?
You know what, Trump is just saying, I don't care. I'm going to appoint whoever. I don't know who's giving him the recommendations. Don Jr. maybe, or Laura.
I think both.
They're both playing a big role.
They're giving him these names, and he's just saying, do
let's
it.
go for it.
I have a comment from President-elect Trump. He says, together, Jay and RFK Jr. will restore the NIH to a gold standard of medical research as they examine the underlying causes of and solutions to America's biggest health challenges, including our crisis of chronic illnesses and disease. By the way, Bhattacharya said in March 2021, I think the lockdowns were the single biggest public health mistake.
Okay.
There you have it.
Any comment from Anthony Fauci about his new successor?
Man.
That's,
Yeah, and I'm going to speculate under his breath, President-elect Trump said, take that, Fauci.
You like that, Anthony?
Oh, my word.
It's going to be huge.
Okay.
Bigly.
The left, the Democrats, when they come back, are going to say, look at all these names, all these people Trump's chosen. They're going to go, where do we start?
That's right.
And Matt Gaetz, of course, he took his name out, so they've got
Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi. She was the AG in Florida for 8 years, I think.
And she has been very well received.
Yeah, she'll sail through.
Oh, yeah.
She'll sail through. So with Gates out of the way, I don't think any of his nominations are going to be defeated, with the possible exception of RFK Jr. He could be voted. He could not make it as what is it?
Secretary of Health.
Secretary of Health and Human Services. I'm just saying that's the one that's to me out there. And Hegseth,
Pete Hegseth,
he'll be close too. That'll be a close vote, you think?
It's going to be a tough one. There are Republicans in the Senate that have some concerns.
Okay, so those two guys might or might not make it.
Right.
In the confirmation process. Well, we'll have to see
Yep.
what happens there. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Well, tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day, as we all know, and there is a history here to the idea of giving thanks to the Lord, Lord God, in our country, and the real story behind Thanksgiving. Stephen McDowell joins us. Stephen is president of the Providence Foundation. Of course, Stephen and I have been doing the Spiritual Heritage Tours for 20-plus years together, and he joins us now from Charlottesville, VA. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing great, Tim. Good to be with you today.
What do you think about all these Trump appointments?
Well, Abraham Lincoln, when he proclaimed what became an official day of prayer and thanksgiving, said, "Innumerable blessings have been bestowed upon the United States of America." So that's why he set aside a day. So looks like some of these might be some of those innumerable blessings.
Oh, man. Oh, wow. Okay. True. We won't go down one by one here, and you can. But anyway, it's just just from a comedy standpoint, it's hilarious, these appointments that Trump is making, because they're like the complete antithesis of the establishment in that particular field. What they would say. Now we'll see if whoever gets the FBI, who's going to be the Justice Department. Who's going to be
Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi's going to be the attorney general.
Okay, well, she needs to go in there and clean house.
And she will.
Okay.
Yep. They're not going to make the...
Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
I must say regarding this, one of the central biblical teachings about government is limited government. And our government has gotten way too big, spending way too much money, of course, more than it has. And anything that Trump or anyone else can do to limit the size of government is going to be good for our liberties. And certainly the founders of America, including the Pilgrims who established Christian self-government, they understood that civil government has an important function of protecting our life, liberty, and property, but it needs to be very limited because sinful men will abuse their authority and power, and we certainly have witnessed this. So any cleaning out of big government, I am for.
Well, that's the job of Elon Musk and
Vivek
Ramaswamy. I say that's the job of. I think they're the ones who are going to be. I don't know what kind of authority they'll have. I think
they're going to make recommendations.
Making recommendations.
Yeah.
But certainly those two fellas. Certainly Elon Musk knows about being regulated to death.
Yes.
All right, Stephen. So you mentioned the Pilgrims there. We'll be celebrating Thanksgiving Day all over the country tomorrow. Take us back. What was the year when we first had the Thanksgiving that we all, read about and hear about? At least we did as kids back in the 1600s.
Well, we do, trace our uniquely American holiday of Thanksgiving to the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims came from, in 1620, they were English separatists who, back in the late 1500s, early 1600s, when they lived in England, they separated from the Church of England and started their own church, which was a new concept. No one did this. They were then forced out of England. They found refuge in Holland 12 years. And then in 1620, they sailed to the new land of America. And after 66 days at sea, they had intended to settle in the north part of Virginia, but were providentially blown hundreds of miles north of their intended destination. So they couldn't sail south due to the weather. The captain said, "You guys are getting off right here." They looked around and they found a spot, which is today Plymouth, Massachusetts, and that's where they started their first settlement. It was December 1620 when they began to construct their new settlement, and it's very difficult first winter. In fact, half their number died that first winter due to the sickness and disease and lack of food. And so it was providentially kind of the spring of 1621 that God brought to them Squanto. He was an Indian that was part of the Patuxent Indians who their tribe had actually lived right where Plymouth was, where they started their colony. But around 1617, there was a plague that wiped all these out except for Squanto, because he had been 1605. He'd been carried off to England, lived there, and learned English for about 9 years. Came back in 1614 with Captain John Smith, and then not long after that was taken captive again and sold as a slave in Spain. But some monks bought him providentially and set him free. He found his way back to England and came back in 1619 and found all his tribe had been wiped out. So he joined to a nearby tribe. But then when he heard that these English, who he knew because he had lived in English, he knew the English people, when they had come and settled in the tribe at the place where his tribe used to live, he came and felt, hey, I need to take care of these guys. And he took them under his wing. He taught them how to catch fish and plant corn with fish. And many things that was essential for their survival. In fact, their governor, William Bradford, called him a special instrument sent of God for their good beyond their expectation. And he also helped them to have a peace treaty with the Indians, with Massasoit, their chief, and others. So it was that fall, after they had survived this extremely difficult first year, that they had just an ample supply where they said, we want to set aside a day to give thanks to God. He's delivered us and set us up in this new land to start a new colony. He sent Native Americans to help us survive in the new land. And so we're going to set aside a day of thanksgiving to God. And they invited Massasoit to come and celebrate with them. I think 90 Indians came with Massasoit, and they had 3 days of feasting and playing games and doing all kinds of things to give thanks to God for him watching over their lives. So this is kind of the tradition of our first American Thanksgiving, and of course they feasted as well as they could that first Thanksgiving. That's why we feast today at Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, while most Americans feast, they fail to understand that the Pilgrims did, because they looked to God when they had plenty and when they had little and said, we want to give thanks to God. He's watched over us, protected us, provided for us. And that began what was regularly observed by the Pilgrims, later by the Puritans, by others that came. We had hundreds and hundreds of days of prayer and thanksgiving that the colonial Americans observed because they recognized without God we never would have made it. So that's the beginning of that. And, when George Washington was first elected our president in 1789, early on that first fall in November of 1789, he set aside November 26th as a day of thanksgiving and prayer. And most every president after that did that. When Lincoln was president, it became an official holiday in 1863, but it had been governments that proclaimed days of prayer and thanksgiving literally over 1,000 times or more in the first few centuries.
So Thanksgiving Day, as we know it, which is it the last Thursday in November? Anyway.
It's the fourth Thursday, I think.
The fourth Thursday in November, which is almost always the last Thursday in November. So it's been that way since Lincoln, or do you know the answer to that?
Well, officially since Lincoln, but as I mentioned, our first president, George Washington,
right,
at the recommendation of both houses of Congress, he set aside November 26, which was a Thursday, 1789, because as I mentioned, civil governments had been proclaiming days of prayer and thanksgiving and prayer and fasting from the very beginning, really before the Pilgrims even. The Jamestown settlers did it in 1619 at Berkeley Plantation, but they did it all the time. They had a day of prayer and fasting and a prayer and thanksgiving at least once a year. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, for kind of historically, that had been a day that they had chosen to do that. So Washington did it. Most every president since Washington, from between Washington and Lincoln, did as well. But Lincoln made it an official. So, officially, as a nation, we're going to do this every year. So it became official under Lincoln, but had been done since our beginning.
All right, Stephen, if people want to read more about this, and you've got so many resources, books and videos and all kinds of things on early American history in particular, how do people do that?
Well, you go to our website, providencefoundation.com. I do have an article why we celebrate Thanksgiving, so go there and Google it, and you can take it and read that tomorrow as you sit around. It's a short little article that recounts this story. And then we have lots of books and materials and videos that you can get at our website, providencefoundation.com. But be sure to get that free article to remind yourself why we celebrate Thanksgiving. That's the name of it.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. You're not expected to be appointed to any position in the Trump administration, right? Like Secretary of History, maybe?
Well, it'd be nice, but I don't think I get confirmed. I've written too many controversial things.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving. Take care. See ya.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
He might actually get through confirmation, because something I've learned about senators is that they vote for things they didn't read. So,
anyway, did you know all that about Thanksgiving?
I heard the story, but when I was listening to Stephen, it just brings back also God's providence, how he uses weather, he uses the connection of that native Indian who went to England and spent time there,
Squanto,
comes back, and he feels sorry for these English settlers who have just gone through this horrific winter, and he's there to help them. Only God can arrange that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. By the way, Stephen McDowell, who you just heard us interview, he will be with us when we go to Boston on a tour next year, next October. Be our first ever trip to Boston, Mass, and we're going to see all the history in that
great city
and the surrounding area. So, and of course, Stephen will be going with us to Williamsburg and Washington, D.C. and Mount Vernon and all our tours next year. So if you want information on that Boston trip, it's going to fill up pretty quick based on people already signing up.
And it's a great time of the year.
Yeah, October.
Oh,
so you could just go up there, and if you want to go to see the foliage,
man,
just going up for that after our tour. So we'll see part of it during our tour. But anyway, so if you want to go to Boston with us a year from next October, or Williamsburg in the summer, and Washington, D.C., all these tours that we do, if you want information on them, we have a new website. Just go to www.wildmongroup.com. That's WILDMON group.com. www.wildmongroup.com. And just click on the tour you want information on Boston, Williamsburg, or Washington, D.C. You're listening to Today's Issues. Next story, Chris.
We had a major announcement yesterday.
Is it major, Chris?
It is. Based on what I'm about to share, Walmart, the world's largest retailer, is rolling back its diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI policies, joining a growing list of major corporations that have done the same after conservatives and conservative organizations, including American Family Association, have been voicing their concerns about Walmart's policies here. Just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that Walmart has done, they're going to be getting rid of DEI policies, including a policy that Walmart had they're going to do away with a 5-year commitment for an equity racial center set up in 2020 after the police-involved death of George Floyd. They're also going to pull out of a prominent gay rights index, and when it comes to race or gender, Walmart says it will no longer be giving priority treatment to suppliers. I got some reaction to this from Jerry Boyer. Jerry Boyer of Boyer Research is somebody AFA partners with on investor activism. And Jerry says this is a very good thing, what Walmart has announced here. Clip 11.
It's one thing to do it with the Tractor Supply, very conservative, customer base, not a giant company. It's another thing to do it with the largest employer in America and a company that is sometimes the largest revenue company in the world. This is much bigger. This is a real stronghold. And Walmart had gotten pretty far to the left before. So they're coming, which you wouldn't expect from an Arkansas-based company. And yet we see this over and over again. Companies that should never have gotten this far to the left get a wake-up call. So this is really big. And I think this is going to set off what they call a preference cascade. Once Walmart does it, a lot of other companies are going to do it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it goes back to the Supreme Court decision against affirmative action. These companies knew when the new sheriff comes to town, when the Trump administration comes to town, that they were going to face lawsuits on this idea of giving preference based on race, preference based on sexual orientation. They were going to face lawsuits backed up by a Trump Justice Department. So that's why a lot of these companies, plus they saw the election results too. They saw the country, the pendulum has moved back to more conservative, and they saw all of this coming.
Yeah, the DEI, what does that stand for again?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay,
that's been around a while, but it basically just took off after the George Floyd death and the protest around the country against the police and against racism. That's what they said. Systemic racism, which I don't believe in. I don't think there's such a thing as systemic racism. Was there at one time in many parts of America? Yes, there was, but that hasn't been an issue for a long, long time. All right, several decades. So what they're trying to do with this DEI is keep it going, keep the Al Sharpton view of the world alive. Basically, that's what DEI is all about. And it's unnecessary, and it in itself is divisive and with people. And so, listen, we don't need all this stuff where you're trying to pit this group against that group. We just need rules for everybody to follow, people to be. You can't discriminate based on race.
Yep. And
everybody knows that now. Huh?
Yep.
So who's doing it? If you're doing it, take somebody to court or report them or whatever. But people aren't participating in that kind of activity anymore. So there's no need. Basically, this diversity, equity, inclusion now is just being pushed so you can push the trans issue. That's basically all it's, basically all they're trying to do right today is push the trans issue on people.
And there's huge rebellion against that, as we've talked about.
And also, these corporations, as big as they may be, like Walmart, for example, they have to budget for this part of their company called DEI. Well, they may budget, $10 million a year. I don't know what they budget. You know what I'm saying? To staff this office.
Yep.
And they're looking around going, we need to make cuts. We need to make cuts because, and we're going to have to pick parts of the corporation that don't bring any value. monetary value at least. And something like DEI, you go, we don't need this, okay? There are already laws in place about racial discrimination. There are already we already teach our employees to be, nice to one another and to customers, So you don't have to stress that with videos and slideshows and all that stuff. All right, and they're all these DEI folks are almost all far lefties. Mm-hmm. Almost all of them.
Yep.
You very rarely, they don't hire conservatives.
No.
Or traditionalists, or Christians for that matter, to be a part of that. All right, so we're going to take a short time out right here, Chris. My profound thanks to you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Are the Dolphins playing tomorrow?
Yes, they play Green Bay. The Dolphins are 5-6 and are the first team on the outside looking into the playoff picture.
So they play tomorrow?
They play tomorrow.
Okay. The Miami Dolphins play at Green Bay?
At Green Bay.
At Green Bay. That'll be interesting. We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Peter Rosenberger, author of the book A Minute for Caregivers, When Every Day Feels Like Monday.
I've been a caregiver for nearly 40 years, and I know how important it is to encourage a family caregiver. I also understand that caregivers don't have a lot of time, and each chapter of my book can be read in a minute. It's encouragement, support, and each chapter will point you to safety. Oh, by the way, they're all written in fluent caregiver.
A Minute for Caregivers is available at resources.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Could the U.S. sanction nations which comply with the UN's court warrants to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? Eben Brown reports.
A bipartisan group of U.S. Congress members are ready to pass sanctions bills against countries acting on arrest warrants issued by the UN's International Criminal Court for Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. South Carolina U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham is in Israel.
Canada, Britain, France, you name it. If you buy into this arrest warrant as legitimate, then you're going to meet stiff bipartisan resistance in America.
Neither Israel nor the U.S. is a party to the UN court. The U.S. has long held the court is not impartial and would be used to prosecute U.S. service members. Eben Brown, Fox News.
Israel and Hezbollah have agreed on a temporary ceasefire deal to halt fighting in Lebanon for 60 days. Israeli government spokesperson David Menzer in Tel Aviv says the deal must be monitored and followed closely.
If Hezbollah violates the agreement and tries to again rearm itself, we will defend ourselves. If it tries to rebuild terrorist infrastructure near our border, we will defend ourselves.
A retired Army general says reforming our woke military will have to come from the very top when Donald Trump assumes office in January. More from Chad Groening.
With the election of Donald Trump, the American people are excited about the changes that he has promised regarding our military, which has been weakened by 4 years of wokeness perpetrated by the Biden-Harris administration. As a result, only 9% of young people are showing interest in joining the military. Retired Army Major General Joseph Arbuckle was a recent guest on Washington Watch on American Family Radio.
What's happening right now is family members and others are telling their friends and other associates basically not to join the military because it's gone woke. People don't join the military for that purpose. They join to serve their country, as we know, serve their nation, and do the best they can in that capacity. So that's one devastating impact of wokeness and DEI.
Arbuckle says reform has got to come from the top.
And that will involve a change of leadership. The signal has to be pushed down through the ranks from the very top, actually coming from the president through the Secretary of Defense, that wokeness is out and we're going to return to our fundamentals, and that is warfighting readiness preparation to do the job that the military is tasked to do, and that's to fight and win our nation's wars. And get rid of all this extraneous stuff that goes with DEI and wokeness that is distracting from that fundamental principle mission.
And Arbuckle is impressed with Trump's nomination of Pete Hegseth to be Secretary of Defense.
And I'm sure that Pete Hegseth will keep that right in his sight picture And that will motivate everything he does, and that is warfighting readiness.
I'm Chad, groaning.
President Trump's border czar appointee made a visit to the southern border Tuesday. Bill Malugin is in Eagle Pass, Texas, with more.
Incoming border czar Tom Homan isn't even on the job yet, technically, but he felt it was important to come down here to Texas and let the state know come January they're going to have a federal government that will work with them rather than against them when it comes to securing the Texas border. Tom Homan and Texas Governor Greg Abbott visiting a Texas National Guard base right here in Eagle Pass, where they fed Texas National Guardsmen and state troopers and also thanked them for the work they've done to secure the border the last few years.
And finally, the Thanksgiving holiday travel period could be record-breaking, and those hitting the road are being warned to be prepared.
As the TSA braces for what it says will be the busiest ever holiday travel rush, travelers are bracing themselves for plenty of company on the road and in the air. AAA says nearly 80 million of us are expected to travel through Monday, with the vast majority going by car. And Mother Nature may not cooperate. Forecasters say winter storms could disrupt travel, complete with a cold front expected to sweep through the Midwest and South before heading east with precipitation and colder temperatures. Snow and rain are possible on Thanksgiving Day and into Friday in parts of New York, Vermont, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, which could snarl traffic from Boston to New York City. In New York City, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Liberals are determined to fight any legislation that protects election integrity. That's why the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act has been added to a continuing resolution spending bill. The SAVE Act will make sure only American citizens can vote. States will have to remove non-citizens from their lists of voters. Please take time today to urge your representative to support the addition of the SAVE Act to any continuing resolution bill. Time is of the essence, so visit afa.net today.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Just to remind you, tomorrow we will have some special radio programs during this Today's Issues 90 minutes, so plan on that. There'll be excellent programs. And then Friday we'll be here live, JJ, Ed, and yours truly with Learning University. So we will do that on Friday. We'll be here live for that show for Trivia Friday. Tim with Fred now, and Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
When last I saw you, Steve, your arm was underneath your shirt in a sling, and now you've pulled it out. So
yeah,
we're making progress.
Making progress. I start physical therapy today on the arm. I had rotator cuff surgery about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, and
do you know what the physical therapy is going to include?
It includes making me cry.
That's what I was. Sure. I wasn't going to say that, but
I'm pretty sure
I
that's
didn't
what
know.
it is.
Physical therapy makes everything sound so happy.
I know, right?
You know it's going to
so
be
fun, doesn't it?
You know it's going to be bad when they say this is going to hurt.
Right. I mean, who doesn't?
Let me know when it hurts.
It's going to hurt you more
now.
than it hurt me.
I mean, who doesn't? Physical therapy just sounds just so innocuous until you go. And it's the physical therapist's job to become Dr. Pain.
I know.
So
I had it done on my knee. I know.
No pain, no gain. Well, you've had.
Yeah, it makes you start saying, well, maybe it's not so bad living the rest of my life with sling.
I know. So you got the sling out, and so what are we looking at? Maybe a month you'll be able to be without the sling. What?
I don't know. Well, I have to talk to my. They say it's a lot longer. The shoulder is a lot more complicated than the knee, or it's a lot longer than the knee anyway.
Yeah.
You had to do a lot more stuff.
Gotcha.
Clean up some stuff in there, and it was. So,
all right.
I don't know.
Well, what's your first story, Steve?
I want to talk about the goings-on at MSNBC.
MSNBC.
Our favorite network that we like to hate watch.
MSNBC.
MSNBC's having some problems. They are reportedly being shuffled off into Neverland by Comcast, who owns them. There's rumors abounding, nothing official, that a lot of people want Elon Musk to buy MSNBC and do what he
Fred does.
And do what he
Fred's lobbying for that.
I know. I am too. I'd love to see that.
For the pure fun.
Meanwhile, what we're finding out is that during the campaign, Kamala Harris sat down for almost no interviews. And the ones she did sit down for were kind of friendly. Well, now we know kind of why. Kamala Harris's campaign paid two payments of $250,000 each. This is $500,000 to the National Action Network, which is Al Sharpton's nonprofit, right before he sat down to talk with her.
He has a program on MSNBC.
He has a program on MSNBC, and she sat down for a hard-hitting interview with him. But before the interview went on, she paid $500,000 to his nonprofit. I want you to hear some of what the interview sounded like. See if you could possibly withstand this withering criticism. 13.
Here is my exclusive interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. I have to ask you about your opponent. He used a very ugly term about you last night. How do you react to this kind of street talk from someone who wants to be president again, that was president? What does it do, in your opinion, to the standards we're setting for our young people all over the country when we're using this kind of locker room street talk about an opponent for president of the United States?
So the American people deserve so much better. That's how I come at it. And to your point, the President of the United States must set a standard.
I don't know how she got through that question.
Yeah, no. What did Trump call her?
I don't know. He said it was something that started with S. I don't know what it was. I don't. And if I did, I think I couldn't say it on our air. So.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, yeah. So here we have the cable news channels. There are three main ones. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. There's Fox News, which always leads in the number of viewers among the three.
Mm-hmm.
By far.
For decades.
Yeah. And then there's CNN, and they're number two, usually. Not always, but. And then there's MSNBC, which is number three. And CNN and MSNBC, they basically split the liberals' viewership, right?
Yes.
But most of them probably going to MSNBC. Rachel Maddow is their star.
Yep.
Now she's having to take a big pay cut because their viewership has tanked to I know this word is overused a lot, unsustainable levels. In other words, if the viewership doesn't pick back up for MSNBC and they can't get back over 1 million people watching every night with a national network like they have, then I don't see how they stay in business. I think they'll have to just go kaplunk, and go out of business, which and the far left, which watches NBC, they're completely and totally demoralized after the election. So it's kind of like, why do we don't want to be the resistance any longer. They were the resistance during the Trump 4 years.
Those people were the ones that kept CNN and MSNBC alive during the first Trump presidency. They were the resistance. Anybody that wanted their fix of Trump derangement syndrome would tune in. But since this election victory, this in 2024, they have not come back. They left when Biden took office, and they're not coming back.
Yeah. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens there with MSNBC. Of course, NBC, that's the parent company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Comcast is the parent company that owns both of those.
The conglomerate.
Okay, Comcast is a parent company that owns all NBC and all its affiliates.
Correct.
Like NBC, CNBC.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Some Hispanic networks.
Okay. But it's all owned by Comcast.
Comcast is the parent company.
Yeah, CNN too is hurt. CNN is giving layoff notices. What has happened in the media over this election period is absolutely amazing. You had the L.A. Times. You had a revolt by the staff there when the L.A. Times would refuse to
endorse
Harris. Same thing happened at the Washington Post, and the owners of these papers are saying, we need to make money in order to stay alive, and we're losing subscribers. Same thing happening at CNN. Jeff Bezos. Owns CNN.
No, he owns the Washington Post. Does he own CNN?
I think. Anyway, the ownership at CNN Same thing. We're losing viewers. We depend. You have to have viewers in order to charge people who want to run ads a decent price. And so these media are crashing. The left-wing media, they are crashing. And the owners are saying we've got to do something to balance our coverage.
Right, because the owners are business people.
They are.
They're in it to make money.
Yes.
Warner Brothers owns CNN.
Okay.
And one last comment on this interview scandal. You got to wonder the wisdom of spending that much money on an interview that's going to be friendly anyway. It's kind of like paying your mom to love you. She's going to love you no matter what you do. And Al Sharpton was going to give this kind of softball interview no matter what happened.
Well,
but yet they parted with $500,000.
Okay, so I'm just thinking out loud here. I haven't. But if you're Kamala Harris, the VP, and you're running for president, and you have donors, right? Mm-hmm. People who give you money for your campaign because they want to see you win. And then now you learn that $500,000 of the money spent from her campaign went basically into the pocket of Al Sharpton.
Yep.
To do $500,000, right?
Yep.
I mean, no. Yeah, $500,000, right?
$500,000.
So now it went to his organization. I guess it's a nonprofit.
The National Action Network, yeah.
But let's just be honest. It basically went to him, or where he said send it. So it was basically a pay-per-play.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is if I'm a supporter of hers, of course it's a moot point now, but if I'm a supporter of hers financially, I'm going, why do you need to pay Al Sharpton to do an interview on MSNBC? You're the Democrat candidate for president. Doesn't he want to have you on? And don't you want to do the interview? And that alone benefits him. But now you're just having to, like it's an infomercial. You just, hey, write a check for $500,000 and we'll give you an hour on MSNBC. Isn't that what it sounds like?
Oh, yeah. There's no question about it. Like to Steve's point, that they didn't need to pay anything to Al Sharpton. I mean, Al Sharpton was going to do a softball interview anyway.
Right.
And the Kamala's people had to know that. I think it could have come right down that, hey, Al Sharpton's our friend. Let's just cut a check for $500,000.
That, or maybe it was the thing that got them the questions beforehand. But Al Sharpton did not tell MSNBC this was going to happen. I saw another headline from the Kamala Harris campaign. They are blaming Donald Trump for her not appearing with Joe Rogan. To which I say, mission accomplished, I suppose.
It was better for her she didn't go on Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah. 3 hours?
That would have been a disaster. It would have been worse. She'd lost by more.
Yeah.
The finger pointing in the post-mortem continues on the Harris campaign. Rep. Omar Ilhan, the squad member, Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, she's saying that where Vice President Harris lost it was when she decided to bring Liz Cheney with her on the campaign trail. She wanted to pick up disaffected Republicans. Well, the only constituency that she had really in her pocket were young influencers, young people. And so what better way to do young Democrat young people than to bring on Dick Cheney's daughter? It didn't work out. So that's Ilhan Omar says that was their death, what caused the campaign to die.
Yeah, that's sad.
The Democratic Party is in total disarray right now.
Yeah,
it is.
They're floundering out there.
They are. They're pointing fingers. This is the problem. This is the problem. Well, the reality is a whole bunch of problems. They kept Joe Biden. They kept propping him up, and now they're saying we kept him too late. Joe should have left earlier. Joe wanted to stay, but Nancy Pelosi and others forced him out. But then they didn't have enough time. All they had was Kamala Harris, and everybody knew she was a horrible candidate.
Yeah. They got incompetent people trying to enforce stupid ideas.
And they are. Listen, I want to hear Peggy Noonan, who said, it's not that you're not communicating correctly. It's that what you're communicating is stupid. It's not what people want to hear. Cut 8.
If you are a Democrat now, you are feeling depressed and anxious, and you are casting about for what went wrong, and you're trying to define what your problem is. If I were asked for advice, I'd say the first thing you must know is that your problem as a party is not a communications problem. It is a content problem. It's not that you're talking wrong to people. It's that your issue sets, the things you stand for, are not considered attractive by more than one half of the American people.
Yeah, she just bingoed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right there.
Yeah.
So,
poll after poll after poll during the campaign said people are concerned about the economy. Joe Biden and company and Kamala Harris were telling people, hey, things are great.
Yeah.
The economists say we're doing a wonderful job. The border, they denied there was a crisis on the southern border.
They made it. They created it.
Yeah. So economy, southern border, the crime that was going on, has been going on in the country because of Biden policies, all of those things we talked about the transgender issue, all of those just things that the Democrats were trying to defend were the things the American people hated.
Yeah, that's what Peggy Noonan right there is saying.
Yeah.
And you combine that with a bad candidate.
Yes.
A bad candidate with a bad message.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a recipe for success there.
Nope.
So, anyway, next story, Steve.
All right, they are in the middle of a United Nations climate change conference right now.
Good.
Yes, it's in Azerbaijan.
It's where?
Azerbaijan.
Where is that?
It's somewhere in the Middle East. It's in one of those Russian. It's one of those
way over the
Russian
Black Sea.
A former Russian.
It's in Russia.
Actually, to the east of the Black Sea, I believe it is.
Yeah, it used to be part of Russia.
Yeah.
But before all of these.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, John Kerry, the U.S. climate czar, is there, and
good.
He's starting to panic. I think because certainly his priorities are not going to be realized under Donald Trump. And I don't know what he can do in the next 50 days, but he's talking like something needs to be done and done now. I want you to hear cut 9.
I think, personally, we're on the brink of needing to declare a climate emergency, which is what we really have. And we need to get people to behave as if this really is a major transitional challenge to the whole planet, to everybody. People in Africa don't have electricity, need to choose the right kinds of electricity. And we need to help them be able to afford it and do it. We are the largest economy in the world, $24 trillion or $23 trillion economy, maybe more by now. The next closest is China at about 18 trillion. And the next closest to the two of us, Germany and Japan at 4 trillion. That's how far it drops down. You don't think we have some sort of obligation out of that to be responsible? I think you do. But I'm just saying, our country needs to talk about this, and we need to make it happen.
So he wants to declare a climate emergency, and he wants to make sure that people behave a certain way. Fred, what kind of things do you think they could do to they can't make people behave in a certain way, can they?
Oh, they can. And part of the agenda has been climate change, to tell everybody there's this crisis. So every time there's a hot day, there you go, climate change. Every time there's a hurricane, it's all about climate change. Listen, what John Kerry just said, Al Gore has been saying for 20, 25 years, and people are saying, wait a minute, life goes on here, folks. But to your point on the behavior, they have been hoping they could use climate change to force behavior on people.
Right.
For example, we're going to make you drive certain cars, all right? And we saw that during the Biden administration.
Right.
We want a certain percentage of Ford cars to be EVs, et cetera, et cetera. But then we saw the examples, I think this was in Britain. We're going to have zones, and you're not allowed to travel out of those zones only at particular times of the week, of the month. So we're going to lock you in so you're not using energy to drive to a distant work, whatever the case may be. So that's what they want. But you know what? The American people, at least, aren't buying this anymore.
They're not. And the threat is even worse. You remember we've talked about the World Health Organization is considering a treaty on natural disasters, on the next pandemic. And you remember the COVID lockdowns and all the requirements that you had to do, closing buildings and churches and making people stay home and wear masks and get vaccinated. Well, they want to write climate change into that rubric of the World Health Organization so that they can put some of those same measures in place if they decide that there's a climate emergency. It gets very, very authoritarian very, very quickly.
Well, tell you what to eat and what you can't eat.
Yeah.
Because they want to get rid of cows.
Yeah.
You know, all of those things. It's crazy when you think about it. Absolutely crazy.
Again, the American election.
Yeah.
Just a big setback to John Kerry and his dreams of making everybody behave a certain way.
Yep.
Listen, I've mentioned it before. I don't believe in man-made global warming.
No.
If the globe is warming, it's meant to be.
Mm. That's right.
And there's not anything you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And all they ever want to talk about, for the most part, is how to control the American economy.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And how to control Americans, because evidently, even though we're the cleanest country in the world, maybe with the exception of Canada, we're somehow the fault for the global warming. And so even if America did everything that these climate activists said we're supposed to do, the rest of the world, for the most part, maybe with the exception of Western Europe, but China doesn't care.
China and India are the biggest.
China and India are the biggest polluters in the world, and they're not. You don't say, why don't John Kerry go over there and talk to them, get them to modify their changes? We're doing our part here in the U.S. To keep the planet clean. Again, if there's global warming, first of all, I need to see some evidence of that. But even if there is, I don't give in to that's caused by my SUV.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't have an SUV. I have a smaller car, but I'm just saying that's what John Kerry always wants to talk about what Americans need to do.
Yeah, and just to the point, you said that the biggest polluters, yes, they are the biggest polluters.
Talking about India and China.
India and China. But I also want to say that what they're trying to regulate is CO2 is not pollution. They say it's pollution. And China and India are doing other types of real pollution. The rivers over there are just awful. But plant food, this is what plants eat in exchange for oxygen. So, yeah, they're all messed up.
You want to know who controls the climate of the world?
Who's that?
Job 37, God. Job 37. If ever you're having a debate with somebody on this, Job 37.
Yeah.
God controls it.
Yeah, amen.
So great.
Listen, Americans and Canadians too, I'm sure, Fred, it's been ingrained in our national being for at least 50 or 60 years to not pollute.
Yeah.
To not litter.
Yes.
To keep your rivers and lakes and beaches safe.
Yes.
And so all those things.
Nothing wrong with recycling.
Environmental, what do you call them? Environmental cares. We all have those.
Yes.
Nobody wants to breathe polluted air.
Yeah. And you know, as others have said, we're not against electric vehicles.
No.
If you want an electric vehicle to put around your neighborhood,
go get one.
Go get your groceries. Go get one.
Yeah. Nobody's against electric vehicles.
But don't tell me I have to buy one.
Right. Exactly. All right, Steve.
All right, let's visit the little town of Emo in Ontario, Canada.
Emo.
I'm going to...
I thought that was a character on like
a name
Sesame
of a movie
Street or something.
Yeah.
That's Elmo, isn't it?
It's Elmo. So anyway, in Emo, Ontario, they have been fined by the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal has fined Emo $10,000 and required its mayor, Harold McQuacker, to provide the group with $5,000 from his own account. It has to be his own personal money. The reason? They didn't put up a pride flag during the month of June. They refused to make June the official Pride Month.
Who's trying to fine them?
The Ontario Human Rights Tribunal. By the way, legally binding fine.
Yes.
Well,
Canada needs an election like we just
Right.
experienced here
Right.
in the United States.
Right.
And there is a Donald Trump in Canada.
There is. Okay.
Pierre Poilievre.
Just pay attention to him.
He is the head of the capital C Conservative Party.
Okay.
He is a younger Donald Trump.
Is he going to run against Trudeau?
Oh, yes.
Now, Trudeau, can he run forever?
Uh,
Is there any limitations on how many times he can be
we don't
Prime Minister?
have term limits in Canada. However, when it comes to polling right now, Pierre was his dad. Justin Trudeau is in the barrel. I mean, nobody likes this guy.
Wow. Okay. So he could lose.
We're all praying.
Oh, you mean
Imprecatory prayers.
God's against him too? You
Yeah. Yeah, I would put him left of Joe Biden.
Really?
Oh,
Talking
yeah.
about Trudeau.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right, Steve, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
All right, remember, tomorrow we'll have special radio programs. We won't be live here with today's issues, but we will be back here Friday. Now, the shows we're going to air during this hour and a half tomorrow are going to be excellent. You're going to want to listen to them. But we'll be back here live with Learning University on Friday. Have a great Thanksgiving Day celebration, everybody. See you back here Friday.